How long are you going to keep living for everyone else while abandoning yourself? You're everywhere except with yourself. You give and give and give, but inside, you're empty. Let me tell you something. No one is coming to save you. If you don't choose yourself, if you don't focus on you, you're going to lose yourself forever. And the worst part? You won't even notice until it's too late. This video isn't a soft pat on the back, it's a wake-up call. Because it's time to stop giving away your time, your energy, and your life to people who don't even value it. Stoicism holds an undeniable truth. Everything starts and ends with you. Today, you're going to uncover the teachings you need to finally put an end to that version of you who lives seeking approval, who's caught up in 1,000 battles that aren't even theirs, while your own life is falling apart. It's time to focus only on what truly matters, you. Because when you choose yourself, when you focus on you, everything starts to change. Before we begin, let me tell you Mauro's story. You might not relate to his job, but you'll probably connect with how he felt every morning. Mauro was a night guard at a small museum, one of those places where almost nothing ever happens. He clocked in at 10, finished at 6, and for hours his only company was silence, security cameras, and a few statues that seemed more alive than he was. At first glance, his life looked peaceful. No one bothered him. No boss breathing down his neck, no traffic, no meetings, no stress. But there was something worse, a soulless routine. Every night was an exact copy of the one before. The same machine-made coffee, the same rounds, the same yawn while checking the clock at 4 a.m. And the worst part, the same feeling of being a spectator in his own life. The strange thing is that, even though he felt that way, Mauro was always there for everyone else. His sister knew she could call him at any hour if she needed something. His neighbor left him the keys in case there was a gas problem. His boss used him as the go-to guy to cover shifts, and he said yes to everything. Always available, always solving things, always paying attention to everyone but himself. He didn't have time to see a doctor, but he made time to go with others. He didn't allow himself to sleep an extra hour, but he'd cover for someone who missed work. He didn't buy books, but he gave gifts to everyone else. And still, no one noticed that he was forgetting about himself. One night, while walking through the ancient philosophy room, he stopped in front of a statue he'd never really looked at before. It was a bust of Seneca. His brow was furrowed, his eyes carved with intensity, and his presence was commanding. Below, on a small bronze plaque, it read, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste a lot of it." Seneca Mauro froze. Something about that figure made him feel exposed, as if somehow Seneca was looking straight at him. That's when the thought hit him like a sting. How much time have I been wasting? Without even realizing it, and without making a sound, Mauro began to come back to himself. He didn't quit his job. He didn't move to India. He didn't make a viral video about changing his life. He just started using his dead time as living time. He picked up his notebook again, started reading at night, learned to meditate during his breaks, and when no one was watching, he practiced phrases in other languages. Because he always dreamed of traveling, even if he never said it out loud. He also started saying no, leaving tasks for another day, not answering every message. And something strange happened. The world kept turning, but it was finally turning without him at the center of everything. Today, Mauro still works the night shift, but he no longer feels absent, because he realized that you don't need to change everything to start living. You just need to come back to yourself, to focus on the only thing you can truly control, how you choose to live this moment. And if you're here, it's because deep down you know you're also losing something. Maybe your energy, your time, your purpose, or maybe you're simply losing yourself. As Marcus Aurelius said, the life of each person is what their thoughts make of it. This video is an invitation to take charge, to take back control, and just like Mauro, to choose to come back to yourself, without waiting for everything to fall apart, without needing to hit rock bottom, just by making one decision to focus on you. Are you ready? If this content is bringing you value, consider subscribing and becoming an exclusive member to get access to unique benefits. And tell us in the comments, are you ready to stop living for others and start focusing on yourself? Or just write, I'm a Stoic, today I choose myself. 1. Your environment says more about you than your words. My friend, let's be clear. If you truly want to focus on yourself and transform your life, you need to start with the most obvious place, and at the same time, the most overlooked one, your environment. And when I say environment, I don't just mean the people around you, although we'll talk more about that later. Because yes, it definitely matters. I'm talking about all those things that come in uninvited, but stick around, making noise inside your head. Not sure what I mean? Think of your mind like your home. If you allow negative voices in everyday, useless videos, people who only complain, tragic news, and pointless arguments, that house starts filling up with dust. You can put flowers in it, you can paint the walls pretty colors, but the mess is still there. And in the end, you end up living in chaos, thinking that's just how things are. I know someone very close to me who lives exactly like that. She wakes up with her phone in hand, turns on the news before even brushing her teeth, scrolls through social media where everyone looks happier and more successful than she feels, and then spends the day talking about how messed up the world is, how her neighbors, her job, politics are all falling apart, and at night she complains she can't sleep and lives with anxiety. And you know what's worse? She doesn't see the connection. She thinks it all just happens for no reason, like the world is crashing down on her by accident. But no, that's not how it works. The truth is what you consume, what you allow into your mental space, shapes how you feel. Jay Shetty, who spent years as a monk, explains this really well on his podcast. If you want clean energy, you need a clean environment. He calls it creating nourishing spaces, both physical and digital, because energy, my friend, is contagious. And if you surround yourself with chaos, don't expect to feel peace. Now just imagine for a second that we add Epictetus to a modern-day WhatsApp group, one full of complaints, pointless memes, and fear-mongering chain messages. What do you think he'd do? He'd probably leave within 5 minutes saying, I'd rather be deaf than let this much noise into my soul. And honestly, he'd be absolutely right, because like he said himself, it's more important to be mindful of what you feed your soul than what you feed your body. So tell me, what have you been feeding your soul lately? If you truly want to focus on yourself and achieve everything you're aiming for, start by taking control of what you let in. Here are a few steps you can start applying today. First, unfollow at least 3 social media accounts that only make you compare yourself, feel less, or waste time. Yes, even that account with a millionaire dog living better than you in Dubai. It's not helping. Get rid of it. Second, do a digital cleanup once a week. Ask yourself, does this content inspire me or drain me? If the answer is it drains me, you already know what to do. And third, change your soundtrack. If your playlist sounds like it was written by someone with a broken heart and zero self-worth, change it. Sometimes silence is better than all that drama. Small decisions, that's all it takes. Because if you clean up your environment even just a little, your mind starts to breathe. And when your mind breathes, you take back control. You start thinking more clearly, feeling more energized, and most importantly, putting yourself first. And that, right there, is the first step to focusing on yourself. It's not just about looking inward, but also about protecting what surrounds you. If today you walked into your mind like someone walks into a room, is it tidy? Or is it full of things you never chose? Maybe focusing on yourself starts simply by learning to close a few doors. 2. Every action defines you. Imagine that everything you do today, every gesture, every choice, every little habit is a brick. Just one. Nothing more. But tomorrow, you lay another, and the next day, another one. Doesn't seem like much, right? Now wait a month. Look back. What have you built? A fortress that protects and empowers you? Or a cage that traps you and keeps you stuck? Because, my friend, whether you like it or not, your actions speak for you even when you say nothing. And even more so, It's those small actions, the ones you repeat without thinking, that end up defining you. And here's the big problem. Most of the time, you live on autopilot, doing the same old thing, expecting different results, and wondering why nothing ever changes. James Clear says it in his book, Atomic Habits. If you improve just 1% each day, your life will be completely different in a year. But of course, that sounds boring, doesn't it? Because everyone wants explosive change, the magical moment. What nobody wants is repetition, consistency, the small stuff. But that's exactly where the real power is. Seneca understood this perfectly. That's why he said, "The reward of a good action is having done it." Don't expect applause or instant results. Do it just because it shapes you. In fact, according to him, we should act as if a wise person were always watching us. And no, you don't need to go find some monk in a remote village in Japan. Just imagine one in your mind. What if you lived like that? What if, every time you're about to get distracted or sabotage yourself, you imagined Seneca watching you with that serious face from the corner? Sounds silly, maybe, but trust me, it works. Now tell me, how many times a day do you say you want to focus on yourself, that you're going to change, that it's finally time? Meanwhile, you're watching your third motivational video of the day, snack bag in hand, procrastinating and checking Twitter every 5 minutes. Do you really think that's the way? Of course not. What you say you want means nothing if your actions go in the opposite direction. Picture yourself doing something that's just for you. No trying to impress anyone, no pretending, just something you truly want. Like, say, getting ready to run your first race, not to compete, just to feel good about yourself, for your health, to prove you can stick to something. At first, you're motivated, but then reality hits. You feel lazy, your legs hurt, it's raining, and quitting sounds way too tempting. This is where you really need to focus on yourself, and not with motivational quotes, but with clear actions. Let me suggest a non-negotiable, bare minimum routine. You don't need to exercise for an hour a day. Just 3 simple steps. Warm up for 5 minutes when you wake up, go for a 10-minute jog before your shower, and at night, write in a notebook how you felt. That's it. But do it every day, no excuses. And so you don't forget, use what they call the activation rule. It's simple. Link the new habit to one you already do without thinking. For example, right after brushing your teeth, put on your running shoes. Don't think about whether you feel like it. Just do it. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. You'll see that after a week you won't have to push yourself so hard. And after a month, you're already someone who runs. Just like that, without even noticing. That's the magic of acting for yourself, of committing to you. You don't need to make noise, you just need to repeat. But here's the best part. This isn't just about running. It works for anything you want to achieve in life, if you truly focus. Because when you turn your habits into allies, you start building the version of yourself you've been searching for all this time. No need to explain it to anyone. Just you, your consistency, and your path. So tell me, if we recorded a video today showing everything you do without thinking, would you feel proud watching it or uncomfortable? Let us know in the comments. Because cameras may turn off, but your actions are still recording who you are, every single day. And if you do it right, they'll also be recording who you're becoming. 3. Learn to speak to yourself with respect. My friend, if you had a follower who commented on your posts every day saying things like, "You always mess things up," "You're a disaster," "You're so stupid," how long would it take you to block them? Probably less than a minute. Now here comes the uncomfortable question. What if that hater was you? Because yes, as harsh as it sounds, a lot of the time you're your own #1 hater. The one who sabotages you the most, the one who criticizes you the most, the one who talks down to you without even noticing. And the worst part is that it starts the moment you open your eyes. You look in the mirror and say, "Ugh, I look weird today." You drop something and think, "I'm such an idiot." You mess up at work and repeat, "I never get anything right." And then you wonder why it's so hard to trust yourself, to stay focused, to move forward. I'm telling you this because I used to do the same thing. There was a time when I talked to myself in a way I wouldn't talk to anyone else. If I was late to something, I'd snap, "You always screw everything up." If I forgot something, I'd think, "Of course you're a mess." I felt crushed inside and had no idea why. And it was during that time, when I was being the hardest on myself, that I came across a quote by Marcus Aurelius that completely shifted my perspective. It said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." That quote stuck with me so deeply that I've had it as my phone wallpaper ever since. Because I need to be reminded. Because when I start speaking harshly to myself, seeing that quote stops me. It reminds me that I can't move forward if I treat myself like an enemy. It reminds me that if I want to focus on me and truly change my life, I can't keep feeding thoughts that dim my light. Lisa Bilyeu, founder of Impact Theory and one of the strongest voices in personal growth, talks about this a lot. She says we all have an inner narrator, and that narrator can either be our biggest ally or our biggest obstacle. And she's right. Because if that narrator is always saying, "You messed up again. This isn't for you. You're worthless," how do you expect to have the strength to keep going? Now picture this. You're at home, putting together a new piece of furniture you bought with excitement. But when it's time to install one of the doors, you mess it up and put it on backwards. It's not a big deal. You can fix it. But instead of staying calm, you blurt out, "I'm such an idiot," and then mentally revisit every mistake you've made in your life. All over one door? There you go. It's not the mistake. It's how you talk to yourself when you make it. That's when you see if you truly respect yourself or not. So do you want to start speaking to yourself with more respect and transform your life? First, make a list of phrases you'd say to your best friend if they were going through the same thing you are. Things like, "You're doing fine, it's okay, you're trying your best, everything takes time." Then when you mess up or feel like you're falling short, use those same words with yourself. You deserve the same respect you give to others. Second, when you catch yourself being self-critical, add this question: is this helping me or hurting me? If it's not helping, change it. No, this isn't about getting rid of self-criticism, but turning it into something that builds you up, not tears you down. And third, try the mirror method. Look at yourself and say 3 affirming sentences out loud. At first it feels weird, maybe even awkward. But with time, you'll see those words start to take root. And what once felt like insecurity starts turning into confidence. Your mind, my friend, is like a garden. If you water it with self-contempt every day, nothing will grow. But if you start speaking to yourself with respect, with patience, and with intention, even the driest soil can bloom again. Because focusing on yourself also means this: taking care of how you treat yourself when no one else is watching. 4. Stop seeking approval now. Have you noticed how many times a day you act based on what others might say? How many decisions you make hoping for a positive reaction? How often you do something just because it looks good? And now the most important question: how much of that actually has to do with you, and how much is just for everyone else? Imagine you're in a meeting, surrounded by coworkers. Suddenly you come up with an idea. You dare to say it out loud, and instantly your eyes scan the room. You look for a sign, a nod, a "well done," and if you don't see one, you shrink a little. You start justifying yourself. You say it was just a suggestion. You downplay your own voice, as if it had no value unless it got a stamp of approval from the crowd. Now tell me something. Can you picture Marcus Aurelius writing his reflections in secret and thinking, I'm not sure Epictetus would like this? Of course not. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to impress anyone. He wrote for himself, because he understood that living for external approval is the same as forgetting who you are. As he wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." And he lived that. He knew opinions are just that, opinions, interpretations, fleeting judgments. What mattered wasn't what others thought of him, but staying true to his own values. And that hasn't changed. Even today, centuries later, we still give more weight to outside opinions than to our own inner compass. Do you know the creator Diego Dreyfus? He says it with no sugarcoating. If you live trying to be liked, you're going to lose yourself. And he's right. In one of his videos, he shares how he spent years pretending to be someone he wasn't just to fit in, until one day he got tired of it and started speaking his truth, even if it meant losing people along the way. And you know what happened? He didn't end up alone. He started attracting people who genuinely connected with who he was. And here's the funny thing. A lot of the time, you change things about yourself because you're scared of judgment from people who don't even matter, who aren't even part of your real life. You change how you dress because, what will they say? You delete an Instagram story in case someone takes it the wrong way. You hold back from sharing what you love so you won't be criticized. But guess what? They're going to criticize you anyway. If you do a lot, it's too much. If you do a little, it's not enough. If you do nothing, that's wrong too. So are you really going to keep shaping your life to please everyone but yourself? If you truly want to change, you have to focus on yourself and stop caring about what others think. So here's what I suggest. That thing you've been putting off for ages because of what people might say, do it. Write this in a notebook. What would I do today if I didn't care what anyone thought? And answer it with no filter. Maybe it's wearing that shirt you love even if it doesn't fit the standard. Maybe it's giving your honest opinion in a conversation. Maybe it's finally posting that video you've recorded 10 times but never shared. Now go do it. And watch what happens. What do you think will happen? Absolutely nothing. The world keeps turning. And you with a little more freedom on your side. Here's the irony. When you finally stop seeking approval, that's when you start earning real respect. People don't admire those who constantly bend. They admire the ones who stand tall. And that changes everything. Because you start focusing on yourself, on what you value, on what you decide. And from that space, everything begins. Your strength, your direction, your true transformation. So next time fear creeps in over what people might say, remember this. Focusing on yourself is the greatest act of freedom, and no one can give it to you except you. 5. Why do criticisms affect you so much? There are things that hurt, and then there are those that don't bleed but cut you from the inside. You slice your finger while cooking. It hurts, of course it does. It bleeds a little, bothers you for a few days, but you know it'll heal. Now someone says to you, "Are you sleeping okay?" And that comment, even if it wasn't meant badly at all, sticks like an invisible splinter. There's no blood, no wound, but it hurts more. It lingers. It messes with your day. Sound familiar? What's strange is that most of the time it's not even something serious. A random phrase, a look, a shrug. But in your head, it turns into a whole drama. And the worst part, you start acting as if what they said means more than everything you know about yourself. And just like that, my friend, your life becomes a constant attempt to avoid being touched, judged, or seen in the wrong light. But living like that is exhausting. It's like being a block of ice under the sun. Every word, every glance, every opinion that hits you melts away a bit more of your confidence. And even if you look solid on the outside, inside, you're falling apart. Epictetus said it clearly. You can't control what others think, but you can control what you do with it. For him, judging or criticizing others was a waste of time, and letting those judgments affect you was even worse. He said that when someone speaks badly about you, they're really revealing more about themselves than about you. And he was right, don't you think? Because words have no power unless you give it to them. Think about it. Someone tells you, probably with good intentions, you look tired. And instead of brushing it off, you rush to the mirror. You stare at yourself, search for dark circles that weren't there before. Start wondering if you're aging, if you're worse off than yesterday. All that from one comment that was probably just an observation, not an attack. French psychologist Nicolas Perrault gave this a name. He calls it the narcissistic wound. He says we all carry a hypersensitive side that takes other people's words as personal attacks. And if we don't learn to notice where that reaction is coming from, we'll keep living in constant fear of being judged. But you're not here to keep reacting the same way. You're here to focus on yourself, to take control, to change. And that only happens when you learn to give things their real value. So next time someone criticizes you or says something that stings, pause for a second and ask yourself, is this criticism helping me or just hurting me? Is there any truth in it? Why does it hurt me this much? Sometimes there's something valuable in a critique, and other times, it's just someone projecting their own stuff. But you can't know that if you react without thinking. Another helpful exercise is mental rehearsal. Imagine someone criticizes you in public. You don't yell, you don't explain yourself. You just respond in your mind with a simple, "All right." That's it. No more. At first it'll be hard. Your ego will be screaming inside. But if you can hold that silence, you'll feel something powerful, freedom. Because when you stop needing to defend yourself all the time, when you're no longer living based on what others think, you can finally focus on what truly matters, on what you believe, on what you build, on what you decide. And if it's hard, hold on to this quote from Oscar Wilde. If we are so quick to judge others, it's because we tremble for ourselves. Maybe that'll help you realize that other people's judgments aren't always about you, and that focusing on yourself also means this: stop trembling over every criticism and start walking firmly on your own path. 6. Learn to be alone without feeling empty. I hate to be the one to say this, but it's not that you don't know how to be alone. It's that you can't stand facing yourself. And I don't say this to offend you, quite the opposite. I say it because it happens to so many of us. We'd rather choose any noise, any distraction, any person to keep us from silence, because it's there, when the world quiets down, that we start to hear what we've got inside. And that is scary. On the outside, it might not look like much. You play a video in the background while eating, even if you're not really watching it. You walk around the house with headphones on, even when there's no music. You say yes to plans you don't really want, just to avoid being alone with yourself. And then you wonder why you don't have clarity, why you don't know what you want, why you feel disconnected from who you are. But let me tell you something important. True focus begins the moment you're able to stay with yourself without needing to run away. That's where a strong mind begins to form. That's where a clear life starts, because you can't transform yourself if you don't even know what's going on inside. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, an emperor who could have had anyone by his side with the snap of a finger, chose solitude. Every single day, he would retreat to reflect, to talk with his inner self, to examine his thoughts. He wrote, "Withdraw into yourself." Those who have within themselves the source of their actions don't need to run from solitude. He got it. He understood perfectly. If he didn't nurture his inner world, if he couldn't find peace within himself, then he was lost. Because the outside world changes, the outside world fails. But what's inside, if you work on it, it becomes your anchor. And yes, I know, it's hard to be with yourself. So let's practice something that Justin Brow calls conscious solitude, not as punishment, but as a power practice. He talks about how we spend our lives chasing validation, company, stimulation, when in reality, being with yourself should be the foundation of everything. And he's right, because the one who finds themselves in solitude becomes free. And no, I'm not saying you have to lock yourself in a cabin with no human contact. I'm talking about learning to be with yourself without discomfort, about letting go of the fear of silence. Because if you don't enjoy your own company, how can you shape your life around what you truly want? So first, spend 20 minutes a day without music, without your phone, without any stimulation. Just you. Yes, it'll feel uncomfortable at first. Your mind will jump from thought to thought. It'll crave distraction. But stay with it, because that's where the reconnection begins. Second, do something solo once a week. But don't see it as being alone. See it as a date with yourself, literally. Go have breakfast alone at that place you always pass but never go into. Bring a book, or just sit and observe, or go see a movie at the theater by yourself. No, it's not weird. It's freeing. Do it for you, not for anyone to see it, not to prove anything, just to reconnect with the most important person in your life, you. And also, change the word alone to with myself. It sounds simple, but it's not. You're not alone. You're with yourself. It's not isolation, it's a meeting. It's not boredom, it's an opportunity. Because the moment you learn to be with yourself without feeling empty, everything changes. You start to hear yourself, to understand yourself, to figure out what you actually need. And from there, you can truly focus and build a life you choose, not one you're just trying to fill out of fear of silence. So now tell us in the comments, what will your next date with yourself be? It can be something small or something deeply personal. Doesn't matter. Write it down. Because when you choose to spend time with yourself, you take the first step toward focusing on what truly matters. And remember, this community is here to support you. 7. Not everyone deserves a place in your life. If I asked you today to open up the closet of your life, what would we find inside? I bet there are people in there who don't fit you anymore, like old clothes you keep for no reason. Relationships that were once beautiful, but are now covered in dust. People who no longer match your current self, but you still hold on to them just in case. And meanwhile, you're trying to make space, trying to focus on yourself, trying to move forward, but you can't, because everything's full. And you know it. Every time you talk to that person who doesn't add anything to your life, you feel it. Every time you say yes to plans you don't really want, you feel it. And yet, you keep doing it. Out of habit, out of guilt, out of fear. There's a quote from motivational speaker Lisa Nichols that really stuck with me. In a talk, she shared how she had to distance herself, even from close family members, in order to grow. People she loved, but who no longer allowed her to move forward. And she said something powerful. Not everyone is invited to the next chapter of my life. That's what sticky relationships are like. They're not toxic in the obvious sense, but they cling to you. They drain your energy, pull your attention, use guilt to manipulate you. And sometimes, as painful as it is, growing also means letting go. Because not everyone evolves with you. And if you insist on dragging them along, you'll end up walking slower, or worse, getting lost in their noise. Seneca was crystal clear about this. His philosophy was built around one principle. Surround yourself with those who make you better. If someone doesn't improve you, they make you worse. There's no middle ground. They either lift you up or drag you down. They either inspire you or hold you back. And you can feel it. You know it. But sometimes you don't want to face it. I'm sure that as you listen to this, someone has already come to mind. That person you talk to and always end up feeling drained. The one who laughs or throws subtle jabs when you talk about your dreams. The one who always finds something negative to say, even when you're excited. The one who doesn't respect your interests, your path, or your time, and you're still there, justifying it, because they've always been around, because you don't want drama, because they're not that bad. But you're not here to stay stuck in what's familiar. You're here to transform, to focus on yourself, to go after what you truly want. And that requires clean energy. People who push you forward, not who push you off a cliff. So do an inventory of your relationships, seriously. Grab a pen and paper and go person by person. Does this person lift me up? Check. Do they bring me down? Noted. Do they leave me feeling nothing? There's your clue, and be honest. If just thinking about them makes you sigh or feel heavy, that's already an answer. Your energy isn't infinite. Spend it wisely. And when it's time to set boundaries, do it with a bit of humor. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You can say, "It's not that I'm pulling away. It's just that my peace doesn't take walk-ins anymore." Sounds funny, but it sets a clear line. And if they get it, Great. And if they don't, well, now you know. If someone gets upset because you're choosing your well-being, remember this. The right people don't get offended when you prioritize yourself. The wrong ones do. But that's a signal too. Because you can't build a new life while dragging around rusty pieces from the past. And sometimes, true focus begins with one closed door. Just one. But closed tight. 8. Who's writing your life? Imagine for a moment that your life is a movie. There's a setting, a soundtrack, even supporting characters. Everything is moving forward. But there's one detail. You didn't write the script. You're just acting out what others put on the page. Your parents started it, society edited it, your friends added their own lines. And you, well, you're just following the script. No questions asked. And the worst part? You don't even like how the story is going. But you stay in it, out of inertia. It would be great if Marcus Aurelius were the one writing our lives, right? With powerful lines, bold decisions, and philosophy in every scene. But no, it's not like that. Sometimes it feels like our story was written by someone with more drama than wisdom, as if we had a tragic screenwriter dictating our choices. But if you opened your eyes, you'd realize something. You've had the pen in your hand all along. You're just not using it. I've been there too. I'm telling you this with no filter. There was a time when I didn't even dare to travel alone because my group of friends said, "What for?" That there was nothing more beautiful than our city. That going away was a waste of time and money. And I, just to fit in, just to not seem weird, believed it. I stayed. And the worst part wasn't the place. It was how I felt inside. Like I was living in a story that wasn't mine. And of course, when you don't move, you don't grow. Look around you. How many people do you know who studied what they were told to? Who are in a relationship because it was the right thing to do? Who work a job they hate because it's secure? Now I want you to imagine this with me. Your life is a play, and every stage has its own act. The problem is that many times you weren't the one who wrote the script. You inherited it. From your parents, your teachers, from society. And without realizing it, you started performing it. Following every scene, every line, even if deep down you didn't feel like yourself. So what does that script so many people follow look like? Act 1. Study something safe. And there you are, choosing a major based more on job opportunities than on what you're truly passionate about. Act 2. Get a stable job, even if it doesn't fulfill you, even if every Monday feels endless. But hey, that's life, right? Act 3. Hold on to what you've got. Don't take risks. Get married, buy a house, retire if you can. That's it. Sound familiar? That's the script a lot of people follow without ever questioning it. And maybe it works for some, but does it work for you? Now let's imagine what it would look like to write your own script. Act 1. You choose to listen to yourself. For the first time in a long time, you ask what you want, not what others expect. Act 2. You make a brave decision. It could be something small, like starting a personal project, or something big, like letting go of what no longer represents you. Act 3. You start living in alignment. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but with purpose. And no, of course it won't be easy. It's easier to follow the old script, the one everyone applauds even if you're suffering inside. But if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you wants to take control. It wants to write a new chapter, in your own words. And no, you don't need permission, just courage. So start with something simple. Ask yourself which part of your life doesn't feel authentic, which scene you wouldn't repeat, which decision you made just to please someone else. Then do something different. Change a line, write a new one, cut a character out if you have to. Remember what Marcus Aurelius said, don't act as if you were going to live for 1,000 years. Because, my friend, focusing on yourself starts right there, when you stop playing a role and choose to be the author. So tell me, are you going to keep acting out the part you were given? Or are you finally going to be the one who writes your own story? 9. The truth is you're sabotaging yourself. Picture a ship sailing across the open sea. It's solid, the wind is on its side, and it has a clear destination. But without the captain knowing, someone on board is poking small holes in the hull. At first you don't notice, but water starts seeping in, little by little. And by the time the captain realizes something's wrong, it's too late. The ship is sinking more than it's moving. Well, I hate to say it, my friend, but that invisible saboteur, a lot of the time it's you. And don't get me wrong, not because you want to fail, of course not, but without realizing it, you trip yourself up every day, with small actions, with excuses disguised as logic, with distractions that seem harmless but slowly steal your sense of direction. Marcus Aurelius already knew this centuries ago. That's why he said that what stops us from acting isn't out there, it's inside, and you know it too. You say you'll wake up early, but you leave your phone 10 centimeters from your face with the snooze button closer than your actual purpose. You say you're going to start working out, but you wait for motivation like it's going to knock on your door wearing running shoes. You swear you don't have time, but you binge 3 episodes of a series you're not even that into. And when it's over, you say, tomorrow, for sure. But don't stress. It's not all your fault. It's the world we live in. You know what Marcos Vasquez calls it? Modern indulgence. Sounds strange, right? But it actually makes total sense. It's that new normal where giving yourself treats all the time, avoiding discomfort and chasing instant pleasure is what's socially acceptable. As if constant rest were the same thing as self-care. But no, of course it's not. Because that comfort, more often than not, isn't well-being. It's a polished way of staying stuck. It dulls you, slows you down. And worst of all, it makes you believe you're doing fine. And the more comfortable you get, the harder it is to move. Can you imagine Seneca putting off writing one of his letters because he wasn't in a philosophical mood? Or saying, I'm not going to reflect today, I'm kind of distracted. Come on. Just the thought is funny. Seneca wrote surrounded by chaos, betrayal, even while living under Nero himself. And you can't close TikTok for 5 minutes? Come on, it's really not that dramatic. So, my friend, if you want to focus on yourself, if you truly want to transform your life, start now. What can you do? First, stop saying, I should do it, and say I'm doing it now or I'm not doing it at all. Yeah, it sounds extreme, but your excuses are extreme too, and sometimes you need a wake-up call. Second, use the 5-minute rule. That task you've been avoiding, just do it for 5 minutes. That's it, write it, start it, move. Because the first step is what breaks the spell of inertia. And third, do something you probably never do. Answer yourself. Write down the excuses you always use. Literally, I'm tired. I don't have time, today's not a good day. Then read them out loud and answer them like a personal coach would. No fake compassion. You're tired, yeah, but you're doing it anyway. Stop protecting your excuses like they're treasures. They're traps, and you deserve more than that. Remember, real focus begins the moment you stop hiding behind I'll start tomorrow and choose to act now. 10. Build unshakable self-confidence. Let me tell you something that probably no one's ever said to you this clearly. Confidence isn't what you post on social media, and it's not the motivational quotes you repeat in front of the mirror. Real confidence is quiet. It's built when you do what you said you were going to do, even when no one's watching. It's that feeling of going to bed at night knowing you kept your word, even if it was something small, even if no one celebrates it. You know it, and that's enough. My friend, I know it sometimes feels like confidence is some kind of superpower only a few lucky people are born with. But no, it's not like that. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you train. And if you don't believe me, listen to what happened to Lewis Howes, author of The School of Greatness. In an interview, he shared how, after an injury that ended his career in professional sports, he felt completely lost, directionless, with no self-esteem. But instead of standing in front of the mirror repeating empty affirmations, he started doing small things, learning something new, working on his communication, saying yes to interviews even though he had zero experience. And that's when he realized something crucial. Confidence doesn't show up beforehand. It's built afterward, one step at a time. And that's exactly what I want to tell you too. Telling yourself, I can do this, doesn't mean you will. But if you show up for yourself every day, even just a little, there comes a moment when you no longer have to convince yourself, because you already know. Your actions become proof, and proof becomes certainty. That's when you start focusing on yourself for real, not with noise, but with results. Seneca put it brilliantly. He who masters himself has no need to master others. And that's exactly what it takes to truly focus on yourself. Not seeking validation from outside, not trying to prove anything to anyone, just building a confidence that doesn't shake when everything else does. Picture this. You want to change jobs. You're tired, unmotivated. You know you need something new, but you don't do anything about it. Fear paralyzes you. Insecurity takes over. You think you're not good enough, that they won't pick you, that you don't have what it takes. And so you stay where you are, slowly fading, hoping that one day, out of nowhere, you'll wake up with enough confidence to finally take the leap. Spoiler alert, that day won't come on its own. So let's change that, starting today. Here are some real steps to help you start building solid confidence from the inside out. First, make a list of the promises you made to yourself this month related to your growth. Were you going to update your resume? Practice your interview answers? Learn something new? Did you do it? If not, it's okay. This isn't to beat yourself up. It's to start fresh. But this time, go one by one. No pressure, just one goal. And go for it. Second, build your confidence step by step. Something as simple as waking up when you said you would, or sticking to 1 hour of daily study, gives you strength. Because if today you do what you said you'd do, tomorrow you won't have to fake confidence. It'll come naturally. And third, shift your mindset. Don't say, I want to feel more confident for that interview. Say, I'm going, even if I'm scared. Because fear doesn't go away before you act. It fades as you take action. The only way not to let it control you is to move forward with it right beside you. My friend, just when you think you've got it all figured out, the final piece shows up. Because you can have clarity, discipline, and focus, but if you don't have this, there's a risk you'll end up right back where you started. This isn't just another tip. It's a warning. Ignore it, and you might find yourself slipping right back into the place it took you so much effort to escape. 11. Your freedom begins within. For a long time, we've been taught that being free means having money, traveling whenever you want, or not having to answer to anyone. And yes, all of that sounds good. But no, that's not real freedom. Because there are people with millions in the bank who are still slaves to what others think, to their own emotions, to outside pressure. And then there are others, living simple lives, walking through the world with a peace you can't buy, because they owe nothing to anyone, not even to their own out-of-control emotions. Epictetus, who was born a slave, understood this better than anyone. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And if a man who was physically chained could think that way, why wouldn't you be able to do it right now? Do you know the economist Juan Ramon Rallo? He puts it very directly. If there's no inner freedom, there can be no real transformation. You can change jobs, change partners, move to another country. But if you don't take back control of your mind and your decisions, you'll still feel just as trapped, just in a different place. And I say this with all the love in the world. You call yourself free, but you can't go an hour without checking your phone. You make decisions based on other people's approval. You pack your schedule full, but there's not a single day planned just for you. Is that really freedom? Imagine this. For a full week, no one sees you. No one follows you on social media. No one listens to you. No one watches you. It's just you with yourself. Now think, what would you do differently? Would you change what you wear, what you say, your plans? If the answer is yes, maybe what you do every day isn't really your choice, but the choice of the people watching you. So, how do you create the kind of freedom that allows you to focus on yourself, and only yourself? It's not as hard as it sounds. Start by doing one thing today just because you decided to. No trends, no what looks good, no expectations. It could be as simple as reading something that interests you even if it's not popular, or wearing that outfit you love, even if it doesn't match what's acceptable. And no, you don't need a whole day for this. 1 hour is enough. 1 hour a day of sovereignty, no notifications, no outside duties, no being available to anyone else, just 1 hour for you, to reconnect, to think, to choose. And yes, practice the art of saying no, kindly, gracefully, firmly, because every time you say yes to something you don't want, you're saying no to yourself. And that's not freedom. My friend, if you truly want to focus on yourself and transform your life, you can't keep living trapped in other people's eyes. You have to start looking from within, making decisions for yourself, listening to you more than any other voice. And I'll leave you with a phrase that could mark a before and after in your journey. To be free is to have no fear of losing anything external, because what's inside is already enough. Remember it every time you feel like you have to explain yourself, prove yourself, or please everyone. Because when freedom starts within you, nothing and no one can take away what you build from there. Coming back to yourself, that's what changes everything. Because when you choose yourself, when you focus on you and stop living for others, something inside you wakes up. And from that moment on, everything starts to shift. You don't need to get it perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start putting yourself first, listening to yourself, setting boundaries, making decisions for you, and because of you. And if you take one step every day, no matter how small, I promise you'll look back and barely recognize the person you're becoming. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I've been lost for too long. Today, I choose myself." That way, I'll know who the true Stoic warriors are who made it to the end. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give this video a like so you don't miss out on what's coming next. I also invite you to check out our playlist, which you'll see on the screen. It's packed with ideas, stories, and advice to help you navigate life with more wisdom and confidence. Click it, and let's keep moving forward together. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your inner Stoic.